everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some tips and tricks for adding ink to the dimension on your embossing folders. Sometimes this can be a little bit tricky to do, but we're going to explore different ways that we can do it. And I'm going to be sharing with you 4 cards made using with this gorgeous Meadow of Sweet Peas embossing folder from Horton Crafts. I absolutely love this embossing folder. I recently shared it with the layering stencils, but today we're just going to use the embossing folder. Now I've got various pigment inks. I've just showed the cotton white pigment ink from Stamps by Me. I've got some metallic inks from Horton Crafts. Now quite often I'll use blending brushes to apply ink, but I find when adding ink to the raised areas of embossing folders, the brushes end up getting ink in places that you just don't want it. And this is where this blending tool really comes in handy. They used to be used all the time, didn't they, for ink blending, but you see them less and less these days in favour of the brushes, but they definitely have a place in your craft room, and it's for techniques like this where they really work well. Now I'm going to just demonstrate the basic technique using some white pigment ink on black cardstock, because I think this is probably the way most people are familiar with using the embossing folder and adding ink to the raised areas. But we're also going to experiment with some metallic inks and interference inks on different coloured cardstock just to see how you can get a completely different look. So first of all, I'm just adding some black cardstock into my embossing folder, and I'm using my Sizzix Big Shot machine to emboss this. Now to use the plates with the Big Shot machine, what I find works is having the base plate and then the A plate, which is the thin die adapter, and then one cutting plate on top, and then that runs the embossing folder through really nicely. I've just run it through twice, and you can see we've got that lovely dimension there on that piece of black card. Now I'm just going to show you what happens if you spritz your card with water first. So I've just sprayed that lightly twice off camera, once on the front, once on the back, and I'm just going to run it through 3 times. So if you're using a 3D embossing folder, Sizzix do recommend that you run it through 3 times just for that extra definition, and you can really see there you've got a lot more detail on the turquoise teal cardstock than you have on the black cardstock. So I'm just going to go ahead and mist and then emboss the other 2 panels of cardstock. I've got a piece of navy blue cardstock and a piece of purple cardstock, and then we'll go ahead and start adding some ink. And I think the most common way that you see this technique done is using white pigment ink on black cardstock. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate first, but I'm going to be using the flat sponge blender dauber from Tim Holtz, and I just think that this is the most successful way at adding ink to the raised dimension on an embossing folder, just because you're working with a flat surface against the raised edge, and so you end up keeping the ink on the raised portions and getting minimal transfer onto areas that you don't want the ink to go. And I think with a blending brush, because they're designed to get into all the detail, the bristles end up capturing areas that you don't want to catch. So you can see it's not perfect, but it definitely gives a really good result. So I'm now going to repeat these steps on the different cards that we've created, but I'm going to use different inks. So on this one, I'm using this Silver Shine pigment ink. This is the metallic pigment ink from Horton Crafts, and it looks absolutely stunning. In fact, I think this one turns out to be one of my favourites. I love the way that the silver just shines on the navy blue cardstock, and it really makes the detail pop. On the third panel, again, I'm going to use a metallic pigment ink, but this time I'm using Copper Pot, again from the Horton Crafts range, and I'm just loving how the flat sponge dauber is capturing all the detail, it's capturing all the raised portions, and I think because I haven't put too much ink on my blending sponge, it's meaning that I'm not getting any transfer into any of those smaller parts. So I think with the white one, I'd probably put a bit too much ink on my sponge, but yeah, these metallic inks are just stunning. So for the 4th panel, I'm going to use Mermaid Lagoon. This is the Cloud9 interference ink from Horton Crafts. And obviously on the lid, you can see it's green and purple. So on dark coloured cardstock, you get more of the purple colour. And on light coloured cardstock, you get that blue, as you can see on the sponge blender. I'm just going to take some of the excess ink off on my glass mat, and then again I'm just going to blend over the raised portions using that sponge dauber and capturing all the detail with the interference ink. And I love how this ink looks on the purple cardstock. You get more of that deeper purple tone over the light purple cardstock, and then you get that shimmer as well. So I'm not sure if the camera's really picking the shimmer up, but you get a really subtle shimmer on this, and it's really pretty. So they're the 4 panels that we've created today, and I'm going to turn each of them into cards. I'm using 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card blanks today. They're top folding ones that I've created myself using the super smooth cardstock from CraftStash, and I've just trimmed that black panel down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and I've got a sentiment already stamped on my desk. It's from this Hero Arts Floral Imprints stamp set. I really love the font of these sentiments, and I had one stamped out on my desk for another project that I haven't used, so I thought we could add it to this card today. So I've just trimmed that down to be the same width as my card panel, so that's 3 3/4 inches. I'm going to add some liquid glue to the back of that embossed layer, and again some liquid glue on the back of the sentiment. And then I'm going to pop the card to one side because I'm going to add all my gems at the end, and then I'll show you the finished cards up close as well. I'm just going to do the same with this card panel. So again, I'm just adding some liquid glue and sticking it down to a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base. Again, this card panel was cut down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And I've got this sentiment from Concord and 9th. It says, "Thanks so much." And I really want to make it silver. So it was already die cut on some navy blue cardstock, but I'm going to add some of that metallic ink and just change the colour of it so it's nice and shiny. And again, I'm just using that sponge foam blender there and just to add the ink. And what I love about these inks is they're so opaque that you can't even see the blue cardstock through this. It's just completely transformed the sentiment to be completely silver. So that's another way that you can use these inks. They're just so versatile. And because they're water reactive as well, there's lots of different techniques that you can do with them. I'm just going to heat set that quickly with my heat tool, and it's not quite dry. When I touch it, I can see I'm getting a bit of ink transfer. So I'm going to pop that to one side, let it dry completely, and then we'll come back to that card in a little bit and put it together. So again, for the third panel, again, I'm just going to add some liquid glue and stick that down nice and flat to my card base. For the sentiment on this one, I've also got another sentiment from the Concord and 9th die set. It was already pre-cut on my desk, so I'm just going to add some foam tape to the back of it, and then we can pop that down on our card front. I really love these dies from Concord and 9th. I love the font. There's 4 in the set of dies. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I will leave links to all the products that I've used in the description box below if you want to check it out. But I just love the font. I think it's really nice and modern. So that's the third card. We'll just pop that to one side as well. For the fourth panel, again, I'm going to trim this down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. I'm going to take a little bit off the top and bottom of that one just so that I could remove some of the smudging that I'd done around the edge. I'm going to pop this panel up on some foam tape, and then I'm able just to remove the backing tape. I'm going to add some liquid glue to that as well, just so that I've got a little bit of wiggle room and I can just line it up nice and straight on my card base. There's nothing more frustrating than when you've took foam tape, gone and stuck it down and then realised it's not straight. I've got this happy anniversary die cut. I think this is a Creative Expressions die. Again, I'll leave links to the description box below. I think it's a Sue Wilson one actually. It's a really lovely scripty font. And I'm just adding a few dots of liquid glue to the back of that and then sticking that down nice and centered on my card. And then we can go ahead and add some gems to finish off all these cards. But before we do, let's just finish off this silver card. So I've die cut the Thanks So Much die from 2 more pieces of white cardstock. And I'm just going to stack all these layers together just so that these sentiments got a little bit more strength and that it's got a little bit of dimension on the front of the card front. It's a lot easier to die cut multiple sentiments and glue them together than it is to try and fiddle around cutting different bits of foam tape to add some dimension to your sentiments. So that's a neat little hack if you want to give your sentiment dimension, but you're not really sure how to do it. I'm just going to stick that down nice and centrally on my card, hold it in place with my magnets just so that the glue grabs, because obviously we're sticking that down over some raised areas as well. And then once that's nice and dry, we can go ahead and finish off all of these cards just by adding a few little gems. So I've got some silver flat back sequins from a Colourful Life Designs, they're card bling, and I'm just going to add a couple of those. They're like a really nice matte silver colour. I'm using a wax pencil just to help me manoeuvre the sequins around, and then I'll use some liquid glue just to stick those down. I'm using the Barely Arts glue today. I'm just going to add a little bit more of that ink using the foam sponge blender just where I've rubbed some off, and then that can be left to one side to dry, but that is the finished card. I added a few little dewdrops to that teal card. a few little flat back sequins from the whiteout mix from a Colourful Life Designs for the purple one, and some more clear dewdrops for the black card as well. And then those are the 4 finished cards for today. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope that it's given you some inspiration to dig out your embossing folders and encouraged you to try this technique using different colours of cardstock and different pigment inks. As always, all the products that I've used today will be linked in the description box below. Please don't forget to hit the like button if you've enjoyed this tutorial, that little thumbs up symbol, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more from me. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.